Hello everyone, this is Zorina Dimitrova, trainer in Business with Meaning and in creating success through Business with Meaning. I have the pleasure to welcome Nicolina Werther again at the podcast, at the video channels that I share videos on. And Nicolina was a speaker at the New Game of Leadership Summit recently. And today she's with us with another topic. We're going to hear about effective leadership, or she's going to give us tips on how to be a more effective leader. Yes. Hi, Nicolina.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, for me, it's almost a continuation. I mean, of the other everything because we spoke before that already as well about leadership as a sensitive person, and for me, they're all linked. It's all like who do you need to be to get the best out of yourself, but then also of the others that you might be working with. But it could be your family or your community as well. I think for me, they're all linked. I just personally. Yeah, I think for me, it's just this idea that leader is such a big term, but if you want to do something great in the world or impact something, it starts with yourself. We know that. We don't always talk about it like that, but it really comes back down to, how you see yourself, or how do you act, how do you experience yourself, and how do you then go out in the world? And that's really what we're, I guess, talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, so a part of it is going to be about self-leadership. Just let's start off the bat to clarify that this is not entirely a professional talk. It refers to everybody.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually
it's being a more effective person in the end,
I guess. So for me, I think, I don't know if I shared that before, but for me, this whole topic actually came to my awareness really through my own journey. I think I did share it once, but that I noticed that the more, I build myself more confident, more strong, but also, having more capacity. Like when we talk about leadership, often people talk about, being more empathic, being more kind and compassionate and all these wonderful things that kind of happen naturally when you do your own inner work, I find. And that through that, without me seeking it, it almost became that other people were seeking me out for things in family, but also at work and in communities, because I was just having a bit of it as maturity, but just more capacity to, be there for others, to guide people maybe, or, they knew I'd be the safe person to go to for something. And that's why I find it so interesting that it kind of, they're kind of linked. And these are great qualities for anyone who wants to do something great in the world. And sometimes, of course, yes, and if we're talking work, you might be in a position and then you have to ask yourself, okay, am I being as effective as I want to be, or maybe not? And do I want to change it? But again, it can as well apply to you, like I said, in your family or in your community, in your things you do outside of work, and it always comes back for me to like, are you perceived in the way you want to be perceived, or are you having impact in the way? Because sometimes, and I see that a lot, especially with the more sensitive creative people, is we have great ideas, we want to do great things, but they just don't land. Like you put them out there and people might literally not hear them, or they just brush them off, or they just don't create that impact that you desire. And I think that can be very frustrating and sad. And at least that's what I'm hearing from others, again, in different environments. So that's where
effective leadership is, if we have to interpret it, it's more about achieving result. So actually being a leader is not only about speaking and communicating, but it's also about being able to execute on whatever you're setting yourself to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's for me, like, why I call it leadership, because and that's also the keys. Like, I think we said we want to pick out a few of the key areas for today. Is, yes, like I said, it starts with you being able to communicate and feeling confident and strong and all these wonderful things. But then the other element is, of course, okay, what do you actually want to achieve? You're like, you can be a wonderful person to be around, but I mean, the difference is, of course, that a leader usually has some goal or some vision or something they want to achieve, and they want to bring others along, and they want everyone working together in a nice way. Again, even if it is you're wanting to make sure that all your kids are ready on time and they're all happily going to wherever it is, together. It's a kind of it's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar.
So if you would have to rank them, what would be number one then? Would it be your self-management or self-awareness, or would it be the vision you create that inspires
No,
people?
I for me, it always, I mean, almost everything I do always starts with the self-awareness and the self-knowledge. Because without that, what you can't, I mean, you can have a vision, but it's not going to go very far.
Right. Yeah.
And also because then again, it helps you, of course, also with understanding others. And I know a lot of people stress that bit a lot, which I guess in business it makes sense to be like, okay, you know, how much do you see other people? It's just in my work, usually I'm usually more coming from the other side, that I work with individuals where they often have the problem that they are not heard or seen or recognized. And they're kind of usually quite caring and kind, but yes, so how can we change that instead of saying, oh, you need to see the others more? And it's not necessarily that people are more good or more bad or whatever. It's just often has to do with the environment in, like, well, what is a system? Again, if it's an organization or even a society, and like, does this system allow you to be seen or heard or not? So, and that's often why, yeah, we need to see. But yeah, for me, definitely knowing yourself as well as you can, because with that you can, for example, then like one of the classic things about leadership or something is, I call it emotional self-regulation, which is a small word for a huge topic, but basically being as stable and strong within yourself to feel great, but to do great things in the world as well. Because, you know, if you challenges come up anyway, but the question is, of course, how can you be with those, and how can you, as elegantly as possible, move through them? And that has a lot for me to do with how well can you regulate yourself? You know, how, because we all get triggered, but the question is, do we act on it and do we stay there, or can we still do the hopefully best action even when there are difficulties or when we're not feeling great?
Do you feel there are specific techniques that you can teach people to use, not now, I mean in general, that people can self-regulate their emotions, or is it just a self-observation and understanding what, like being self-aware and understanding what takes them?
Both, yes, of course. I mean, people have built whole empires around just doing that bit. Yes, of course. I mean, anything from mindfulness or meditation to breathing techniques are the classic ones, or talking with another person. They literally all have an actual effect on our nervous system, of course, which now we luckily know thanks to neuroscience and things like that. But I find knowledge also helps. So it's really both. It's developing, and for me it's always been mindfulness, because I just love it, because you can do it, you don't have to have a formal meditation, you can do it anytime and just be more aware of, okay, so what's really going on here. But as well, of course, there's also knowledge, and for me there has been a lot, you know, knowledge about things, even things like trauma or something, because trauma is just teaches you anything you need to know about why you might not be emotionally regulated. Which is kind of more like, usually maybe more the third point, but different dynamics between people. So it could be something like, and for me it's been a lot from psychology, transactional analysis, you know, which roles are we having, for example, in how can that then trigger us or affect us, or does that answer your question? I don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean that and for me it's the bit where often we spend a lot of time, depending on where you're at. So it's again being you not being overly triggered, but it's also because that important, which almost leads more into the stage where we're having that vision as a goal and wanting you to be able to take that action towards it and inspire others. You go back to the same point, like how it always comes back to how do you feel, and is it supporting you or is it not? So in a way, and on all the different stages, we always come back to how do you feel, or like where are your emotions in relation to that, and is that the most supportive thing or not? And it's a mixture really of monitoring yourself, looking at yourself as the techniques mentioned, and then also I find a lot of it is knowledge, which I didn't think originally when I started learning it, but over the last years I was like, oh, okay. Yeah,
cool.
And with that, then, like I said, it does help you also to understand other people, which if you want to affect a group of people or something, of course, it's important to be able to see why do they behave in the way they do. Is there something, is it fine or is it not? Is it Does something need to be changed, or can we adapt circumstances or whatever? So this whole idea of high performance, in a way, is very much often linked to how we feel, like how are we in body and mind, and are we able to act at our best, or are we not? And then also, I mean, with that, of course, you get to, by getting to know yourself better, you understand your own values better, for example, or what's important to you. And with that, then you can be like, okay, is there something I want to change? Or maybe you are in a position and you have to change something. But it's still important to check also, how does it, relate to myself and what's important to me? And again, that is something, for some people, it's obvious what's important to them. And for other people, it isn't. And that's when we do like things like maybe exercises around your values or what matters, or even purpose or something, to be more, clear about, okay, this, it's not good, fine with me if this thing happens, or I think I could improve on this, or, let's innovate something over here. Or I was thinking of another example.
Yeah, in my work, I've actually noticed that people are lacking, or what they're seeking a lot is clarity on what exactly they want, why they're doing something. They're lacking the direction, the vision of why they're doing certain things. In general, people feel, I mean, I'm generalizing, of course, but the majority of clients that come to me feel confused about where they're going and why they're doing something. It's like running in a treadmill. You're going to work, but and I remember when I was working in corporate, I had the same feeling, and people around me as well. And at some point, you lose motivation completely because there is no clear leadership, generally speaking, in most companies that give you a clear vision, that inspires you, that motivates you, that speaks to your own values, that speaks to your own understanding of the world, and that's what creates the whole unclarity and confusion, and makes people ineffective in the end.
Absolutely, I totally agree, and that's why I think it is so important, like, no matter why you might be listening to this, if it's for yourself or because you're in a so-called leadership position, to be sure what matters to you. There's incredible power in that, and exactly, like, if we don't, we can be floating around a lot, I find. And I've been there. I still need to watch out some. It's normal, because we're not necessarily taught it. I mean, we get a lot of influences of what should be important to us, but to actually really, feel into it and really dig out what moves you at your core, that can be quite a lengthy process for some people. And I think it's incredibly important, because once you get there, then often, and you've built yourself strong into all the emotional regulation bit, that's an incredible powerful place to be, I find. I mean, and that's what I'm seeing, like, because then you are like on fire, or you will, because you have that inner motivation to be like, okay, and I really want to make this happen, which in itself, without any fancy strategy already, can move things. And people notice that, coming back to how others perceive you, people see that when you have that.
The good thing is that go ahead, sorry.
No, that's why you might become a go-to person for something once you combine these two steps, I find. I don't know what you were to say.
I was about to say that once you start practicing these things, as you call it, emotional regulation, or the way you think, to notice the reasonings, why you're thinking a certain way, why you're acting a certain way, it becomes a habit. So, at the beginning, you might be working with somebody who guides you along the process of what you should be paying attention to, but in the end, it becomes a habit, and so you become better at it with time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All of these things, they are practiced, and yeah, it's an ongoing journey. And again, age also has a role to play. Although we get some things happen almost naturally, and still that you see it if people how much they put into making things work for them, or if they don't. And it can be quite sad to see when they don't, actually. Equally, when they don't have found the thing that ignites them, or they're passionate about, or want to change, it's they're kind of floating through life a little bit, I find, and that's not nice, and not a nice place for anyone to be in, I find.
Yeah, that's the saddest thing for when people. There was a book which I haven't read, by the way, but I know the content of it roughly. 99 things that people regret before they die, or something like that. And one of the things they regret. So number one was not having kids, if they didn't have any kids. And the second thing was not having achieved what their dreams or what they dreamt of. Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah. No, I mean, family, of course, is important. And I know that in my work, I focus a lot on work and fulfillment and meaning in work, because I find it incredibly important. But relationships, at least for me, will usually come first. I find, again, like if you find something that matters to you, things like well-being and health, even finances, there are a lot of things which actually come afterwards. They almost fall in place, or you want to work on your health or something, because then you have more energy to do the things. But for me, relationships are more important, or at least I don't do my relationships so I can do my work. It's more the other way around. That makes sense. So it totally makes sense what you're saying there. Yeah. And I find also, again, like going back to why you want to have something that you actually want to change, then is because it does require you to grow, like internally to deal with the stresses, or being confident, or all that. But yeah, any of these wonderful things, like sometimes people call it confidence or self-esteem or something, like you will have to get these sorted if you want to make an impact. So that's again, has partly been my journey, but I see it as well. Like you can't hide anymore then. You have to actually step up and do the work. And it's I think it's incredible for your own growth or well-being to approach it that way. And again, that's the way it has worked for me, or I like to teach it.
Awesome. So you're having you're running a free webinar on which date?
It's on the 16th.
On the 16th of March. Yeah. All right. And the topic is, again, effective leadership, how to be a more effective leader.
Exactly. Looking specifically through self-leadership. So we already spoke about this, mostly about the 2 points. And obviously, there'll be much more around it and more exercises, so you can actually do more reflective work and other things. Like we didn't really touch on the 3rd point, which is then really looking at more the power dynamics and social dynamics and things. But
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let's do that now.
No, I mean, that is also the one which I find it's usually the one I talk a little less about, because it's more context related. So depending on which system are you really wanting to affect, and also because it's super interesting, because it has to do with all our conditioning, cultural influences, or things from our families where we might act in ways that we're barely aware of. But it's also the one where you can least put like models in there or certain ways of teaching, because it's linked again to the self-awareness. The more you practice that, the easier that step becomes as well. But it is, I do like to keep it separate, because just as an extra thing, what I don't like to, or what I find tricky, is when people are only about, oh, let's change a system, or let's change this, or change the world, or whatever, and they haven't done the first 2 steps of building those inequalities. Doesn't work so well long term, I find, because it comes more like the pointing fingers at others, instead of saying, hey, how does that actually relate to me? And how can I be my best self, and with that, in a positive way, impact change, and not because I'm unhappy about something in the world, if that makes sense. That's really when we then move almost into the 3rd stage of, okay, now on a large scale, how not, you can't play small, you have to be your best self. That's what we do before. And now how can you impact something? This whole idea of being interdependent, like how can we do the best for everyone here? That's for me really the 3rd step. But I will I will talk a little bit less about that, I think, even on Tuesday, just because it's such a huge topic in itself, and only that much you can do about it. But the others definitely will go deeper in, like how you can even practice more self-awareness, more emotional regulation, and these wonderful things, and also how to be more clear about your vision, all the wonderful things you want to make happen.
Yeah, awesome. I'm curious. I'm gonna join. Awesome. Where can people register? I will put the link below, but just in case for people listening, where can people register for the webinar?
I think there's a link as well. So there's a sign up page thing. You can just put your name and your email, and you get a confirmation. And then because then I can send you follow-up emails if I need to. Because I think
but the website is nicolinawerther.com, or what is your website?
But it's not actually on the website. It's just an extra page.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So follow the links below. On the 16th of March.
It's 7 o'clock UK time, so 8 o'clock European time. But there's a recording as well, if I remember to record this time.
I'll remind you.
If you can make it live, it's of course always better, but still, so there will be.
Great. So everybody, you're welcome to join. It's going to be fun. With exercises, I always enjoy practical exercises. So I'm curious about that. Thank you, Nicolina.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Bye-bye.